For those of you who have followed me for quite some time, you know that I have two pet peeves. One is when people use the cardinal instead of the ordinal when referring to the epistles or to the Kings or Chronicles. And another pet peeve that I have is when people say revelations instead of revelation. And I know that that seems pretty petty, but to me, it's a sign that the person either is not too familiar with scripture or they don't know what they're talking about. But last week I heard a creator that I enjoy say revelations. So I sub-threaded, more as a joke. I said on Threads, don't trust people who say revelations when referring to the book of Revelation. Because of course, some people just do make mistakes or they don't know better. It is a joke. But then there's a group of people who showed up commenting who are making arguments for saying revelations. Now, this might seem like a petty thing to address, but the reason I want to address it is because this is a prime example of how people don't know how to do Bible study, and this person is making mistakes that if he's making these kind of mistakes with just titling the book of Revelation, then that means he's making these same mistakes in other parts of his Bible interpretation. So as a lesson for all of you, I want to walk you through this. Okay, so here's the post. I said, don't trust people who say revelations when referring to the book of Revelation. And this person responded, why do you call it revelation when it contains many multitudes or revelations? Now let's address this first point before we move on. Whether you have a preterist, a historicist, or a futurist perspective of Revelation, it is the general consensus that the book of Revelation is one revelation. Many things are said, but it is only one revelation that John had on the island of Patmos on the Lord's Day. Let's continue. Who named it? When you can answer that one and convince me one more thing, then I'll call it revelation. Until then, you have to justify to me why you're calling many revelations only a singular revelation. So then I said, I can't tell you who named it, but it's the title on every New Testament manuscript of Revelation, as old as P47 and Codex Sinaiticus. The Greek title is always singular in the genitive. Now, for those of you who are not too familiar with textual criticism, which we'll get to in just a second, Codex Sinaiticus is one of the oldest full copies of the Bible that we have. And in that codex, the book of Revelation is called Revelation, singular. So already right here, just with that, that should be enough to end the conversation to say that the oldest manuscripts that we have already title it this way, but this is not how this person is functioning. So right here I have my Bible open here on the left side. I have my Nestle Aland 28, which is the Greek New Testament text. And here on the right side I have the apparatus for the Greek New Testament. And here I have an SBL New Testament. So these are two different types of New Testaments that have two different kinds of apparatuses. And an apparatus is what shows you the variance in the Greek manuscripts that we have. So right here, you'll see these numbers on the side. You'll see these Hebrew characters, and you see all these blue highlighted texts. What all of these are different manuscripts that have the text that appears in the Greek text that gets translated into English. So how we got the Greek text and from which manuscripts they came from. And when you look at the apparatuses, both in the Nestle Aland 28 and in the SBL, you don't see any variance when it comes to the naming of the book, which means that all the manuscripts that we have agree that the title is Revelation. Now the question is, where do we get the revelation from? Because most of them don't actually have like a title at the top the way we would. But the place that we get it from is from the first line of the book. So if you see right here, it says Apocalypsis Jesu Christu. And right here, you have Apocalypse, Jesus Christ. And Apocalypse here appears in the nominative case, and Jesus Christ appears in the genitive. And for those of you who want to see it physically, here I have on the right side the breakdown of the text. So if you come down here to the first line, Apocalypsis, it's a noun, nominative, and singular. And in Greek, it's kind of like Spanish, the words have genders, so it is feminine. And a nominative is the case that refers to the subject. And then Jesus Christ, if we go right here, boom, it's in the genitive. It is the revelation, singular, of Jesus Christ. And if you look at my response, this is exactly what I said to them. Sir, the title is based on the first line of the book. Apocalypthis, nominative singular, Jesu Christu, genitive singular. There is no conspiracy here, but you do you. Now here's where the conversation got interesting, and people often make mistakes, but this is like one of the biggest mistakes that people make when it comes to language. And he said this to me. Apocalypsis G602 sounds plural in Greek, translated as plural, Revelations in 2 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 1. Plot is thickening. All right, if you don't understand what G602 refers to, that refers to a Strong's Concordance number. Now, my friends, as a general rule, if anybody is trying to teach you Hebrew or Greek from an authoritative perspective and they use a Strong's number, do not trust them. They don't know what they're talking about. Strong's Concordance is a concordance. It is not a dictionary. And what a concordance is it takes all the ways that a word has been translated into English and gives you a view of all the different ways that that word has been translated. And Strong's Concordance does that with the King James Version. So when you find a word like apocalypsis and it tells you all these words, it's not definitions, but it's all the ways that that word has been translated into English in the King James Version. It's not actually giving you a definition. And Strong's Concordance does have its place for people who don't know Hebrew or Greek, but to use it as a way to define a word would be a misuse of what it's intended to do. Secondly, he says it sounds plural in Greek. And my friends, this is not how language works. You know, in English, we would usually say something like spoons, and that means you have more than one. You know, with this man's logic, we can say bus. Oh, bus ends with an S. That means that it's multiple buses. Well, we know that's not the case. Just because something sounds plural in English from another language doesn't make it actually plural in the original language, especially considering how Greek is a gendered language while English is not. But then he says, translated as plural, Revelations in 2 Corinthians 12:1. Now, let's read my response because I think everything that is pertinent is said in this response. My friend, that is not how language works. Inflections from English cannot be applied to Greek. In 2 Corinthians, it says apokalypthes, which is the plural feminine of apokalypthis. In Revelation 1, it is singular. That is why in English it is translated to plural in 2 Corinthians and singular in Revelation. And now for you watching at home, I'll show it to you. So here we're back in Logos Bible Software, and I have the interlinear open here with the morphology. So the word that this man is looking at is right here, apokalypthes. You see the face? That is the ending that makes it plural. Look over here, apokalypthis, and this is Revelation chapter 1 verse 1. Notice that's singular, and here, face, you have plural. And right here, if we go to the parsing, noun, accusative, and what's that right there? It is plural. So that's why it's translated revelations. And again, it's feminine because the word apokalypthis is gendered to be feminine. And then he responds, English can translate it as singular, but it is better translated as plural since there are multiple revelations, not just one. I appreciate the historical tradition of the singular translation, but Revelations is the original before it was changed to Revelation. I respond, translating it as plural would be a mistranslation in favor of dogma over what is written in the Word of God. There is no change. And he says, I agree with you. There is no change except that plural is the correct translation over dogma that it is singular. Maybe you can see a little bit of what this man is doing. It is that he is determined to believe something even though there is no evidence in the text for it. And I mean, the stakes are low for this matter. But imagine if the stakes were higher, to say it's something that actually had an impact on doctrine. And if this is how we approach the Bible, then we're always going to misinterpret it, we're always going to misunderstand it, and we're always going to go with what we believe rather than what the text actually says. Because part of exegesis is asking ourselves, what does the text say? But there's another part to this entire conversation that I haven't shown you yet that I do want to show you, and I'll address it really quick because it's kind of silly also. Because there's this other comment where he says, John the Revelatory identified the one who named it in 3 John, his third and final letter before writing the book of Revelations. It was this man Gaius who then misnamed the book Revelation, even though it clearly contains multiple revelations. One day the lie will become unraveled and we will no longer call it Revelation or even insist on others share in that mistake. So if you continue reading this entire, he makes this whole case that Gaius, this guy named in 3 John, is the person who changed the name of the book. Never heard of this. So I decided to look it up. So a quick search, I found something in Oxford Academic, and there is an article written about it, Gaius of Rome and the Johannine controversy. And just the first line tells right here, Gaius of Rome, thought to have been a presbyter or bishop in the early years of the 3rd century. It is said to have rejected both the Johannine gospel and the apocalypse. Now this is just the abstract, but if you read the entire article, he says that this man named Gaius, who was a bishop in the early years of the 3rd, 4th century, simply rejected 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John and Revelation, but doesn't say anything about changing the name. And again, the stakes are low with this kind of silliness, but if this is how some people read the Bible, then you can see how there are so many people that go wrong in how they understand and read the Bible. So my friends, thank you for watching this whole video if you did, and I hope you learned something. And be careful with the people you listen to. Make sure that they are always staying in the text and drawing meaning from the text. Until next time.